So with the big Epstein files release, the anti-Semites are having an absolute festival, a feast. They are filling their faces. They are filling themselves, satisfying themselves with so much material to consume and to spread, because Epstein is Jewish, and therefore it's the Jews, and he had connections to other Jews, and he was connected to Israeli politicians, and therefore it's the Jews. And I want to talk about this. Someone sent me a clip of Candace Owens going off about Epstein and pedophilia and the Jews and all sorts of conspiracies. Look, Jews do a lot of bad things. Jews do a lot of good things. And when it comes to Epstein and his connections to Israeli politicians, this is another thing. Whenever Israel does something, it's the Jews, it's Israel, as though any American politician doing anything, even if it's an American president, it would be America did this. Everyone in America knows you have different factions, you have the deep state, you have the left, you have the right, you have Republicans, you have Democrats, you have all kinds of different people. Well, guess what? It's the same thing in the Jewish world. So let's just go through some of what exactly I'm talking about, just in case you've been living under a rock and you haven't been following. But I want to illustrate the point, because this whole Epstein anti-Semitism bonanza really tells us something very simple and very straightforward about hatred of Jews. So I'll get to that in a moment. But let's go through what everyone is talking about when it comes to Epstein and the Israelis. Let's take a look. So this is Ehud Barak. Ehud Barak, a former prime minister of Israel, entering and leaving Epstein's townhouse in 2016. Yes, Ehud Barak was friendly with Epstein, but guess what else? Ehud Barak is a despicable human being. He hates religion. He hates nationalists. He is the big boss of the Israeli deep state that despises tradition, despises faith, despises the right wing and the conservatives in Israel, and certainly despises Prime Minister Netanyahu. And he's the one who's been fighting to bring the left back to power and leading the charge against judicial reform in Israel, which really seeks to dismantle the power of this secular left deep state. That's who Ehud Barak is. So yeah, he was close with Epstein. Here's an audio that this guy from Drop Site News, not a friendly site to Israel, dropped about Ehud Barak. This is Ehud Barak and Jeffrey Epstein having a conversation.
He thought there was two cyber companies. Look out, and even though I know Peter, I've never met Peter Thiel. And everybody says he sort of jumps around and acts sort of strange, like he's on drugs.
Smoking, yeah.
Yeah.
He looks under drugs.
However, he has a company called Palantir. Pallen Tier. Palantir is Peter Thiel's company. And look out.
Palantir, Palantir?
Yes.
How you write Thiel? Thielley?
Thiel.
Yeah. LLY.
No. Thiell.
Okay.
So he thought that Peter would put you on the board of Palantir. Peter Thiel is one of the best. I've never met him. He's going to come here next week. Yeah. So I wanted to talk to him after I talked to you.
Okay, there's not a whole bunch more in this. It's a conversation between Ehud Barak, former prime minister of Israel, a terribly corrupt prime minister who tried to give away everything to Yasser Arafat, including Jerusalem. He's a disgusting human being, reviled by most Israelis, and that's why he was booted out of office rather quickly. And in fact, he was the last left-wing prime minister in Israel. There have been other prime ministers who were not identified with the Likud, the party of Prime Minister Netanyahu, that had more centrist leading governments, but they were basically still right-wing people identified as center-right. There's never been another left-wing prime minister, because Ehud Barak was so disgusting and terrible that the Israeli people just were repulsed, not only by Ehud Barak, but by everything that he stood for after that era. It wasn't only him, it was that whole group. Many of them are still running very important institutions in Israel. It is a slow process of getting rid of them. But Ehud Barak, of course, he was close with Jeffrey Epstein. Ehud Barak was also a disgusting, despicable person, just like Jeffrey Epstein. And In fact, Prime Minister Netanyahu, back in 2019, put up a Twitter post warning about Jeffrey Epstein. It's in Hebrew here, but here, take a look at this video file he posted.
תכירו את ג'פרי אפשטיין, חשוד בפדופיליה, בעל עבר עשיר בעבירות מין. אפשטיין ניהל את קרן וקסנר, שהעבירה לברק $2,300,000 עבור מחקר שלא היה ולא נברא. ברק מסרב עד היום לחשוף את המחקר.
קיבלתי למעלה מ10 מיליון שקלים עבור מחקר מקרן וקסנר.
עניתי כמה
הדבר
פעמים.
היחיד שענית עליו אולי קרוב לתשובה זה להגיד, אני לא יכול להגיד כי לא יעבדו איתי.
לא,
אז אתה
לא, לא.
מה עוד נתן עבריין המין לאהוד ברק? האם התקשורת התעורר?
Okay, in this video, it literally opens. It is a video posted by Prime Minister Netanyahu, which literally opens with Prime Minister Netanyahu saying, it literally opens with the video saying, this is Jeffrey Epstein. He is a pedophile. And then it talks about his connection to Ehud Barak. So yes, Ehud Barak is a bad guy. Jeffrey Epstein was connected to him. I don't know how close they actually were in that conversation between Barak and Epstein that was released. Epstein's ostensibly giving him advice as because he's leaving politics and he wants to get involved in some companies. And Epstein misspells Palantir and he misspells Peter Thiel's name. I wonder if Jeffrey Epstein was kind of helping Ehud Barak, but giving himself some plausible deniability so that he could give the wrong name so that maybe Barak would fail in reaching these people. I don't know why he was misspelling the names of both Peter Thiel and Palantir in that. But yeah, Ehud Barak, a disgusting deep stater, was close with another disgusting person, Jeffrey Epstein. See, but here's the issue with anti-Semites. Here's what it really boils down to. To anti-Semites, everything is the Jews or Israel. So if a former prime minister of Israel was close with Jeffrey Epstein, a Jew, then it's the Jews. But the fact that there are other Jews who are exposing these people, and there are other Jews who want nothing to do with them, but that doesn't fit the narrative, so that's just ignored. The fact that Prime Minister Netanyahu was one of the early exposers of who Jeffrey Epstein was, that doesn't make it into the rant about the Jews and Jeffrey Epstein. You see, here's the deal with Jews. Let me explain something about us. Jews succeed. Jews succeed. You know what? I'm going to let Thomas Sowell say it. Take a look at this clip of Thomas Sowell, the great economist and philosopher. He's now 95 years old, talking about why people hate Jews. He was asked, why do people hate Jews? And take a look at what he has to say.
The hatred for the Jews come from in history?
Number of places, but they are people who have succeeded an awful lot in the midst of other people who have not. Years ago, one official of one of the Jewish organizations in New York asked me, well, what can Jews themselves do in order to minimize the hostility they face? I gave him a one-word answer: fail, because as long as you succeed, you're going to be hated.
So the source is success.
It's not only the success, it's the success starting in poverty, as the Jews did in the United States and many other countries. And so you not only see them succeed, you see them rise up from the bottom, past other people. The people they've passed don't like it. But there's also the fact that the role they play economically has never been understood. They're middlemen or they're money lenders, and the argument is they really not producing anything. You can't see anything tangible that they don't stand at a production line turning out widgets. And so the argument is that they're not producing anything. They're gratuitously inserting themselves between the producer and the consumer, and they're parasites essentially. And this argument has been made again not only about the Jews but about similar groups around the world. And in a number of places, they have expelled those people, or forced them out by mob actions, forced them to flee. And after they left, the economy has collapsed. But it never teaches the lesson to know they were doing something.
Okay, so let's unpack this. I think that's a brilliant clip because, look, here's the bottom line with Jews. Jews succeed. 20%, more than 20% of all Nobel Prizes have been awarded to Jews. Jews make up less than half of 1% of the world's population, okay? And Jews do terrible things too. Very corrupt people. Madoff was Jewish. George Soros is Jewish. He's an evil guy. Jeffrey Epstein was Jewish. Yeah, there are really, really bad Jews and really, really great Jews. Now, why do Jews succeed? Jews succeed if they do terrible things, and success there means you do really, really terrible things. And Jews succeed when they do great things. Now, why? Why is that the case? Well, first of all, we're tiny, and and were scattered around the world for a couple thousand years. And when you're trying to survive and pass the baton of survival to the next generation, you have to figure out ways to succeed. And the reason that Jews got into the money lending business and the money exchange business all the way back in Europe was for two reasons. Number one, Jews were not allowed to own land in a lot of places because of all sorts of anti-Jewish laws. That's right, anti-Jewish laws in a lot of Christian countries and Muslim countries. They were not allowed to own land. So Jews would get into business. They couldn't do agriculture, and there was a lot of things they couldn't do. They couldn't join the trade unions because the trade unions were also these closed societies that wouldn't admit Jews. So money lending and money exchange was something Jews got into because Jews have a kinship with each other and trust each other across countries. So when travelers would go from place to place and want to bring currency from one place to the other, and they would need people that they could trust in order to exchange the currency. Jews trusted each other. So Jews became very involved in that line of work. But I digress. The bottom line is this. The Jewish people have always excelled in what we do. We always strive and we excel. Now, where does that come from? Does it come from our tradition? Does it come as a gift from God? This goes all the way back to the Bible. When Jacob is working for his uncle Laban and he has tremendous success, Laban then says, oh, that's all really mine. You're stealing from me. And then when the Jews are in Egypt, Pharaoh says, oh, look, that they're going to end up turning on us. There's always been conspiracy theories about the Jews when they grow powerful. And that's because, again, Jews succeed. Now, I believe that the reason that Jews succeed in what we do is because of something theological. It's part of God's plan. Let me explain. And again, this is even in the bad stuff that we do. It's part of God's plan. You see, when the nation of Israel was brought out of Egypt, it was very important to God that the Jews be brought out with lots of wealth. Very interesting. It's so important that the first time that God tells Abraham that his children, his descendants will go into slavery and then come out, he says they will come out with great wealth. And then when God speaks to Moses before the Exodus, when he first speaks to him at the burning bush and tells him he wants him to go redeem the people, he also includes that when you redeem the people, they're going to take out gold and silver. They're going to take out the wealth from Egypt. And then it's stressed again later on at the time of the Exodus, where God says to Moses, go tell the people to get the gold and the silver to take out the wealth. Why is it so important that when the people of Israel are redeemed from Egypt, saved from slavery, that they also have great wealth with them? Why was that part of the promise to Abraham? I'll tell you why. Because the purpose of the nation of Israel, the purpose of the Jewish people, is to have an impact on the entire world, to be a small people that defies all the rules, that breaks all the rules of history, that lives this miraculous historical narrative that is unlike the narrative of any other nation, breaks all the rules. Because you see, that's what a miracle is. A miracle is when the rules of nature are broken and God predicts it in advance, and it's for his purposes. Okay, that's what a miracle is. So the people of Israel, God says in advance that we're going to spend a lot of time in exile and be scattered around the world, and then we're going to return to our homeland, and we are going to serve as a light unto the nations and serve as a vehicle for God to be revealed to the entire world. Okay, that's the nutshell of what the purpose of the people of Israel is. Great. How do you have influence like that without resources, without success? God wants the people of Israel to have all the tools we need to influence the entire world, even though we are a tiny, tiny people. We've always been a tiny people. That's also in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 7. It says that we are the least of all people. Okay? We're tiny people, less than half of 1%. So God gave the people of Israel the ability to have tremendous impact in whatever we choose to do. So if Jews decide to, like all the anti-Semites love to bring up the fact that the Jews dominate the porn industry. It's true. You know what? They dominate a lot of industries. They also dominate medical research. There's lots of things Jews dominate, okay? Live with it. Deal with it. The Jewish people are successful. Successful at evil things, successful at very good things. And that's because we are like everybody else. We have good people and we have bad people. And it just so happens that ever since Ehud Barak, the more conservative, more faithful part of Israel has grown. and the country is more conservative and has stronger family values than it ever had before. And that left-wing, depraved deep state in Israel has seen their power whittled away and whittled away. And they still have power. They still control the courts. They still are in many positions of power, but they are losing steam. And a lot of that has been led by, lo and behold, Prime Minister Netanyahu, who actually warned the world about Jeffrey Epstein, okay? If Jeffrey Epstein was in league with the Jews and Israel, there's no way that Prime Minister Netanyahu would have outed him as a pedophile back in 2019, okay? So I don't know if I've helped you here. If you hated Jews before this video, you probably still hate them now if you're even watching this. But the bottom line is Jews are successful. That's not necessarily a good thing, because when you're doing evil things, success is bad. Jews are successful. Okay? It's a gift from God, but it has to be used properly. Like anything else, if it's misused, it's terribly evil. So long as we are who we are, like Thomas Sowell said, so long as we are who we are going to be, we're going to be hated by some, and we're going to be admired by others. And that's what God said to Abraham right at the very beginning, the first thing he ever said to him. Those who bless you will be blessed. Those who curse you will be cursed. And it's, we'll be fine. It's a test for everyone else. How do you see the people of Israel? How do you see us? And that's up to you. God bless.